Today's reading is from Deuteronomy chapter 16, verses 9 to 15. Today is Pentecost Eve, the day before Pentecost. We're familiar with the term Christmas Eve, but we don't usually use that phrase for other festivals. The Church, though, allows us to begin celebrating a festival on the evening before. So today's evening prayer is called the first evening prayer of Pentecost. The passage for Deuteronomy is set for its Old Testament lesson. And the connection with Pentecost and that passage is this. 50 days or 7 weeks after Passover, the Israelites celebrated the next main festival, the Feast of Weeks, or the Feast of Booths, or Sukkot. Pentecost derives from 50. The custom was to build temporary shelters or structures outdoors with branches, and to spend as much time as possible during the festival in them. Jews still do this today, eating meals and often sleeping in their sukkot. Well, camping out in the garden is always fun, but there was more point to it than that. The idea of a flimsy temporary shelter was to remind them of their nomadic life in the wilderness for 40 years when they were never at rest long enough to build proper houses, and when even the Ark of the Covenant had only a tent for shelter. But the glory of that time was that their wanderings were responsive to the guiding presence of God through the fire and the cloud. They moved when it moved. They stayed put when it stayed put. They were following God in quite a literal sense. The annual festival, it was a reminder that however we may feel safe and secure, we're not really in control, and we still do need to rely on God and find our security in God. Well, our security has been shaken up of late. Our sense of control has been disturbed. Our habits and routines have been disrupted. Our places of worship are out of bounds. And although we still live in our houses, perhaps this experience can remind us of our fundamental reliance on God, the one whose presence goes with us wherever we are, whether that's in a COVID ward or an ambulance, or at home with loneliness, or in the park trying to socially distance while having a conversation. In biblical times, Pentecost was a pilgrim festival, meaning that Jews were encouraged to go up to Jerusalem to share in it together. This meant crowded streets, and it provided an ideal audience for Peter's first sermon, the first post-Easter gospel message. Thousands heard it or heard about it, and later went home to many different places, taking the message with them. Crowds can be a means of spreading good news, as well as a danger for spreading a virus. Indeed, we could say the gospel went viral at Pentecost.